So I figured I'm a physical therapist. I'm an athlete. They cleared me at 8 weeks. I'm going to go for a run. That's a good idea, right?
Yeah.
So I get about a mile away from the house, and then all of a sudden I look down and I'm like, I'm peeing my pants right now.
Welcome to the No Guilt Mom podcast. I am your host, Joanne Crone, joined by the lovely Bree Tucker.
Why, hello, buddy. How are you doing today?
Do we have an episode for you? Bree and I had so much fun recording this interview with our guest because we get real TMI and enjoy it.
I'm going to say I need to put a little warning on this episode. If you tend to pee your pants when you laugh, you might need to get something to be prepared because it is a funny episode all about how we pee our pants and what we can do about it.
And you're going to hear Bree reference something about a ping pong ball. And just know that we go into that in the outro. So after the interview, make sure you keep listening so you could hear that entire story. But see if you catch it during the episode as well, when she says it.
Yes. And I also think you will never look at blueberries or milkshakes the same after this episode. But it's all good.
It's all a great thing. Before I introduce today's guest, I really want to ask you all a favor. If you could take a second, share this episode with a friend or go and review us on Apple Podcasts. It really, really helps get the podcast out to more people. Apple Podcasts see reviews and then they are, ooh, we're going to show this podcast to other people because people like it. So if you could do that, that would mean the world to us. And now let me introduce our guest. She is Megan Zimmerman, who is a pelvic floor therapist that specializes in pregnancy, postpartum, and women's pelvic floor concerns. She treats clients in person in Phoenix and also has a 12-week online pelvic floor program for women outside of the Phoenix area and in other states. And she's a mom of 3. And now let's get on with the show. You want mom life to be easier. That's our goal too. Our mission is to raise more self-sufficient and independent kids, and we're going to have fun doing it. We're going to help you delegate and step back. Each episode will tackle strategies for positive discipline, making our kids more responsible and making our lives better in the process. Welcome to the No Guilt Mom podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Megan. I am super excited to have you on because I want to ask you all of our dying questions about peeing our pants after pregnancy. So welcome.
Yay! How about just peeing our pants every time we got to sneeze, jump, we get startled too quickly? I mean, take your pick. Take your pick.
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh. Like poise pads are like a topic of discussion in my house. I tell my husband, I'm like, I need more poise pads. How can you not talk about it? I'm like, hey, you caused this condition, so you get to go shop for it too, and you get to know all the details.
Right? I know. It's like our version when we used to send our boyfriends to go get tampons, and it was a big deal. And now we're like, should we send our husbands
to go get our leak pads? I mean, I feel like I'm back to kind of being, a toddler again. Where I occasionally pee my pants, and then I'm discreetly being like, let's not show anybody.
Yeah. So if you're listening right now to this episode, we're going to have a lot of TMI. So get ready for it. I hope you enjoy that about Bree and I and this podcast. So we're talking about pelvic floor issues. So first of all, I want you to explain a little bit about what you do as a pelvic floor therapist.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if you had go back in time and asked me if I was going to be a pelvic floor PT, I would have said 100% no. I did not know what that was. We barely talked about it. I was going to work with athletes. I played soccer in college and I'm like, I'm going to go save the soccer players. That is going to be my jam. And then fast forward, I got pregnant the first time. I had a really long labor delivery and I ended up having a C-section. And I realized there was absolutely zero guidance when it came to recovery from a C-section or a delivery in general. So I figured I'm a physical therapist. I'm an athlete. They cleared me at 8 weeks. I'm going to go for a run. That's a good idea, right?
Yeah.
So I get about, probably a mile away from the house. And then all of a sudden I look down and I'm like, I'm peeing my pants right now. Like, what is going on? I had a C-section, right? I'm not supposed to pee my pants.
That's what you think, right? Like, that's what I tell myself too. I'm like, why is this happening? So I'm so glad you're carrying this. But yeah,
it's almost like I didn't earn it, guys. I had the C-section. I avoided this.
Yeah, the baby came out of the sunroof here. So why am I peeing? So I was so frustrated, and it just put me on this complete pivot. And I realized that if I wasn't taught this information in physical therapy school and we're supposed to be the muscle experts, then what are all these other moms doing out there? They're just swimming upstream, not knowing what to do. So I started taking all these classes. I combined it with a lot of pelvic floor and Pilates-based rehabilitation and realized that this is a big deal, and we need to be talking about this on podcasts, on social media, at the park, by the fireplace. Like, this stuff is important, and women's health deserves to be addressed because we can fix these things.
It's almost like women's health is kind of in the shadows. What do you think, Joanne? Like, we have to hide everything.
But that's the thing. I think you touch on, Megan, is like, we could fix this thing, because that's what I think of when we don't talk about these issues, that it's only me. It's only happening to me. There's something wrong with me. And then we don't find out how to fix it. So I'm very happy that you say we could fix it. I want to know
fix it.
How we could fix it, but let's go into this like a little bit. So how do moms know if they have a pelvic floor issue? Like, every point of leaking actually a pelvic floor issue?
Funny thing, I always start with anybody because everybody has a pelvic floor. And I say that because I cannot tell you how many husbands or male partners have come into the office and said, I don't have a pelvic floor. And I was, yes, you do. We all have a pelvic floor. And fun fact about that, the pelvic floor is actually the bottom of your core. So we think of core as just the abs. Actually, it's the diaphragm, which is our breathing muscle, our abs, our pelvic floor is the bottom, and then our back muscles. So it makes this nice little 360 soda can. And that's what supports us in order to sit with good posture, to exercise, to run, to jump, to pick up our kids. So we want to reestablish the strength in that core versus if I go and chug my Diet Coke and I have my top off, if I can crunch that can super easily. And that's how I compare pregnancy. Our soda can got chugged. It is weak, and it's got some pressure issues.
It's got some pressure.
So in a perfect world, and they're doing this in so many other countries around, or other countries in the world, pelvic floor physical therapists are part of the standard of care. So you're pregnant, you meet with a pelvic floor physical therapist so you can do birth prep.
Yeah, just add another checklist to the crap we're missing out over here.
We're missing because if you ask most of our mama friends, they probably lied on their back in the hospital. They put their legs up super far and they purple pushed as hard as possible and bearing down and don't breathe. And that is so rough on the pelvic floor. And we need to teach people that you can actually deliver a baby and protect your pelvic floor. There's a concept, right? We can do both.
You say we could actually deliver a baby and protect the pelvic floor. So I have so
many questions.
C-section where we did not deliver a baby. How did this pelvic floor get damaged?
Because you were pregnant.
Okay, so wait. So you're saying that the things that we can do can start all the way back in. Because I don't remember doing jack squat when I was pregnant, like either way of anything. I can't remember.
And so many of us too, we're taught, okay, you're pregnant, don't do a lot of exercise, but definitely don't do any core exercises. Don't do any ab work. But your abs are what are going to hold up your baby bump. And then it's going to take a lot of that pressure off the pelvic floor. So if you can keep strength in your hips and you can do strength in your abs, and then you learn how to push correctly without putting just a ton of negative pressure on your pelvic floor, you're already setting yourself up for success after the delivery going into postpartum. And then I teach postpartum, you were going on this big hike and you rolled your ankle. And the last thing you do after you roll your ankle is go for a run. You're going to go home and you're going to rest and you're going to start adding movement to it slowly. Versus we're still hearing in hospitals, okay, go home and do Kegels. Anybody who's pregnant out there, don't. Please don't do Kegels right after you have a baby. Like, if you don't want to go for a run after you roll your ankle, then don't do a Kegel after you have a baby.
Interesting. Okay. Wait, I have a very specific question. having a stronger pelvic floor, could that have any difference in pregnancy complications? So like if you came in with a healthier pelvic floor, does that make you less likely to have intense complications from things like a placenta previa or anything like that? Or no, that's like totally separate?
No, anything with the placenta has to do with where egg implants into the uterine lining. So it could plant here, it could plant lower. So placenta,
okay.
No. But if you have a like normal strength in your pelvic floor, your abs, your hips, you're going to support everything. So you're going to have less likely to have pubic pain, like that lightning crotch we talk about. You're going to have less likely to have low back pain, tailbone pain in pregnancy. But
Okay.
at some point, we don't want to go crazy. So I've had women come into the clinic that are doing Kegels to try to support. When we have a vaginal delivery, the pelvic floor actually needs to stretch about 2 to 4 times its length. So you want that muscle to be strong, but also flexible. And
Okay.
women postpartum can have actually too much tension in the pelvic floor, which causes pain with intimacy. It can actually cause incontinence symptoms, just as likely as weakness.
So that is what I've heard. Sometimes when you have weakness and incontinence, it may not be because your pelvic floor is too loose. So you don't need to do Kegels. Actually, Kegels are not helping your situation whatsoever.
Yes.
Is that true?
Very true. And so many women we're not even taught how to do a Kegel correctly. We're just said, you know what, just do them at the stoplight. Every time you go to a stoplight, just do some Kegels. We don't do them correctly.
Mm-hmm. That's so interesting. So you say that there's stuff that you could do while you're pregnant. I want to just put a pin in that one. And if there is people out there, I want to focus this episode on the moms who had babies and they didn't do anything during pregnancy. They were told to do their Kegels at the stoplight and what they can do now. And we're going to get into that right after this.
Americans spend an average of 90% of their time indoors, but did you know indoor air can be up to 100 times more polluted than outdoor air? You need to breathe easy with Air Doctor. It's the award-winning air purifier that eliminates 99.99% of dangerous contaminants like allergens, viruses, smoke, gases, mold spores, and more. Air Doctor was voted the best air purifier by Newsweek. So it's no surprise that 98% of Air Doctor customers agree their home's air feels cleaner, safer, and healthier. And I am one of those people as well. Unlike other purifiers, Air Doctor captures invisible particles 100 times smaller than standard HEPA filters. Head to airdoctorpro.com and use the promo code NGM to get up to $300 off today. Air Doctor comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee, plus a 3-year warranty, an $84 value for free. Get this exclusive podcast-only offer now at airdoctorpro.com. That's airdoctorpro.com and use promo code NGM.
Are you a parent in need of a laugh and a little escape? Look no further. Parenting is a Joke is the podcast you've been waiting for. Hey, I'm Ophira Eisenberg. I'm a stand-up comic and parent. And each week I chat with one of my top comedian pals who, just like you, are juggling careers, busy lives and schedules, and raising a family. You can expect candid stories, hilarious mishaps that happen on stage and at home, and just a lot of laughs. There's no expert advice here. Well, actually, sometimes a good idea does sneak its way in, but mostly just pure, relatable fun to remind you that we're all in this parenting adventure together. New episodes of Parenting is a Joke drop every Tuesday, so tune in, get ready to laugh, unwind, and maybe even feel a little bit better about your own parenting. Because sometimes that's exactly what your therapist, pediatrician, and bartender ordered. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast platform.
Hello, you sentient ball of stardust. My name is Casey Davis. I'm a therapist and I'm an author of the book How to Keep House While Drowning, where I talk about ways to make it a little bit easier to take care of yourself when you're overwhelmed, stressed, have mental health issues, physical health issues, or maybe you're just in a hard season of life. Maybe you're looking for a place that you can come and listen to some practical advice. This is a podcast for all of the self-help rejects. We're going to talk about skills for survival and self-kindness. And I'm going to leave the pop psychology at the door. I promise not to tell you to meditate or to journal. We're just going to give you some really insightful conversations with hopefully some practical advice. So I don't believe you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. I don't want you to just try harder, and I don't believe that laziness exists. So join me over on Struggle Care, where we can find compassionate solutions that help us function a little bit better.
Okay, I am very interested in this because the two of you got better advice on Kegels than I did. All I was told was just when you're peeing, stop peeing. And that's a Kegel.
And also, please don't do that.
Don't do that.
So it's fine if you're like, I want to know if I can do this. So you'll try when you're urinating and do a Kegel and see if it stops. But so many people then think that's how they should do it as an exercise. And when you're peeing, you're supposed to relax. So please don't do Kegels when you're trying to pee.
That's advice.
I just want to throw that in because before the break, I'm listening to the two of you going like, damn it, I got some crappy advice from people.
Okay, so I want to go into like this step-by-step process that we could use because I need this information just as much as everyone listening out there needs the information. So when you have incontinence and everything and you're like, okay, I need to start healing the core and pelvic floor, like what's the first thing you should do?
I mean, perfect world, if you have access to a pelvic floor physical therapist, go in for at least one evaluation. We like to think that physical therapy in general is something you're going to have to do twice a week for 6 weeks or 8 weeks. So if you can see pelvic floor, absolutely. If you can't, one of the best things you can do is not the Kegels at the stop sign. You need to look at how your posture is. Because if we are sitting like this, like most of us sit, there is no coordination within your core. And one of the simplest ways you can build strength up is just breathe with your diaphragm instead of your shoulders. So with inhales, we're thinking the ribs are expanding. That actually naturally stretches the pelvic floor. So less tension, less pain. Exhale, the ribs come in. So I tell people 5 minutes a day, inhale, exhale. Number one.
That's really good for stress reduction too, because it's something that we teach our balance members as well to calm themselves down. So calming themselves down at a pelvic floor, it's a twofer. You get both.
And if you have tension in your jaw, guess where else you have tension? Your pelvic floor. They look almost identical. If you look at MRI imaging of the throat by the jaw and the pelvic floor, they look almost the exact same.
Wait. So that's a
bad thing. If this is bad, right? We don't like the tension.
I am so up a creek here, Joanne. I am just not doing well. I'm bat 0 for 2 so far.
It doesn't matter though. You're never too young or too old to fix your pelvic floor. It does not matter. They're just muscles. So you can fix them. We can fix them in our 60s and 70s. It doesn't matter.
Oh, well, Megan, okay. So I want to dig into a little bit more about this evaluation because honestly, the thought of it scares me. Can you explain like what happens during this evaluation?
Yes. So number one, we just chat. We figure out what is your problems? What are you looking like? Honestly, as you're chatting, I'm looking at you. I'm trying to see like, how are you sitting? Are you crossing your legs? Are you squirming? And then I'm going to look externally. So I'm going to look at your hip strength. I'm going to look at your abdominal strength. I'm going to look at your butt. Because what mom out there doesn't have a flat butt after pregnancy? Take one thing out of this podcast episode, go check out your butt in the mirror. If your butt is flat, get on the ground, do some bridges.
What if your butt is anything but flat?
Then probably look at your abs.
That's a really great thing.
I'm asking for a friend.
Well, then I'm very happy for your butt, but let's look up at your posture too. There's always something we can make a little better.
It's funny. People can't see us right now, but as soon as you started talking about posture, both Joanne and I were like, let's just kind of straighten up how we're sitting right now.
And it's hard, right? Because we're living in a computer, cell phone world, and we're driving a lot. And then if we just had recent babies, we're living in this like rocking and feeding and rounded world. It's hard.
So a little tangent. I mean, it's the No Gut Mom podcast. Little tangent.
There's
Of course, we start talking about butts. So I have to bring this up. I have this like bodysuit thing that takes body fat measurements. It's called the Zozo Fit. It looks like a futuristic bodysuit and like you use your phone. Anyways, it can assess your booty and it says, I am a low-key peach.
Ooh.
Okay, that's really interesting, right? There's like booty metrics too.
I love that. Does it tell you have to like lift that peach up a little bit?
Well, it tells me, and then it tells me my roundness, lift, and protrusion.
Oh my goodness. I love this.
Unbelievable.
I'm scared to see where I would fall on that.
It's pretty funny. But so you said in this physical evaluation, now when you said all of these things, is there any internal exam? Because this is what I've heard.
Yes. So there can be, not everybody. I have people that are mostly concerned about like their abs are separated from pregnancy.
Ah,
If you come in though and you're concerned about leaking, you're having pain with intimacy, you're having like chronic tailbone pain, likely I'm going to recommend an internal exam. And it's much less scary, I think, than going to the OB. You're under a sheet, you're completely covered. I do a gloved one finger, just my like pointer finger insertion into the body, into the vaginal canal. And I am looking for tension. I'm going to have you do a contraction and see if you're doing it correctly. And then I'm going to give you feedback based on that. It does not happen all the time. And there are plenty of women that come in and they do not want that to be their first option. And we don't do it. There is enough education that we can provide without having to do something if somebody is not comfortable with that.
I'll take that over a pap smear any day.
I will too, because those speculums are really uncomfortable.
Yes,
so bad. Designed by men who didn't have to feel them, I am sure.
I know. I have to hype myself up to go in for those like checkups. So,
I was just teaching a class at a local mom school yesterday, and one of these new moms is only 7 weeks postpartum, and she said they wanted to do a pap smear, so they stuck it right up there without even like telling her what was going on. She said it was unbelievably painful. She started bleeding, and I'm like, where's the permission here? And we don't even have to go that route.
Okay, that's the worst pap smear I've ever heard of. Mine's been painful, but geez, Louiso.
Yeah.
So you have this evaluation that you go through. And then once you have the evaluation, what is the treatment process like for your pelvic floor?
So it's going to be very similar to if you went to physical therapy for your knee. So I'm going to give you stretches typically. I'm going to give you breathing exercises. And most women that I see, I'm going to give you inner thigh exercises and butt exercises. Because if you think of the pelvis, there's a lot of muscles that attach to it. Our hips, our abs. So if we can strengthen those, we can support the pelvic floor so that it's not having to work too hard. Because a lot of these issues postpartum, whether it's incontinence, whether it's prolapse, which presents as like a heaviness sensation or a bulge that we actually can feel, those are caused by that pelvic floor, which acts as a natural hammock. And that hammock was stretched out and weakened during pregnancy, even if you had your babies 10 years ago. So the job of really pelvic floor therapy is to get that hammock to be supportive again and to get all the muscles around it to do their jobs better so that everything works the way that we would like it to.
Interesting. Well, I am interested into how people can expect how long they have to wait for like actual results to happen and what results you have seen. And we're going to talk about that right after this.
When it comes to raising kids, there's so much to consider. Things like, what do we feed them? When do we feed them? How do they sleep? What does it look like to raise kind kids? How does their nervous system work? How do I keep myself calm? What are my triggers? There's so much that comes into play, and we are distilling all of that information for you at Voices of Your Village podcast, where we bring experts in the field of early childhood and education and psychology and across the board so that you don't have to comb the internet for information. You get to show up and hang out and have shame-free, judgment-free conversations and insights into what it looks like to raise kind, empathetic, emotionally intelligent humans. I'm Alyssa Blask Campbell. I have a master's degree in early childhood education. I'm a mom of 2, and I am walking this journey right alongside you doing this work. Come hang out with me at Voices of Your Village, and we can dive into real conversations with actionable tips.
Hi there, I'm Andrea Owen, self-help author with 19 translations of my books, global keynote speaker, and life coach. My podcast, Make Some Noise, has been serving up self-help in a simple-to-digest way for the last decade. The topics brought in each episode are practical and easy to implement around topics such as working through fears that keep you stuck, different modalities of therapy, managing your negative self-talk, and more. We bring you guest experts, solo episodes, and I even coach listeners on the air around relatable struggles. I also do my best to weave my sense of humor into some heavy topics because, let's face it, life can be pretty hard, and it's so much better when we can have some fun while walking through our challenges. Whether you're seasoned in personal development or just starting out, Make Some Noise podcast will help you become the best version of yourself, the person you're proud of when you look in the mirror and show up in your life. Simply search Make Some Noise with Andrea Owen wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Lynn, this time of year, parenting can be such a flusterclux.
You've come to the right place. I'm Lynn Lyons, and I've been treating anxious families for over 30 years.
I'm Lynn's sister-in-law and co-host Robin Hudson.
Join us for Flusterclux, a podcast for parents who worry.
Wait, that's everybody.
Yeah, these last few years have felt like one long anxiety attack for so many.
Why do you think parents are always surprised that a podcast about anxiety relates to them, even if no one in their house has an anxiety disorder?
Well, worry is human. Everyone does it. And anxiety shows up when we face uncertainty.
All the parenting tips you've taught me have been essential.
I love to break it down into skills we need to manage worry in our families.
We've covered so many topics: depression, burnout, meltdowns, perfectionism.
Don't forget scary mothers-in-law.
Right, but of course that's not my mother-in-law.
Because that's my mother.
And a listener.
As a psychotherapist, I like to teach parents and kids how to respond to everyday moments in healthy ways.
Managing anxiety really can be taught.
It really can. And I'll even tell you what to say.
We talk about serious stuff, but without being too serious.
Anxiety wants everything serious. Anxiety doesn't stand a chance when we're laughing, even about the tough stuff.
So, Megan, you talk about the exercises that people need to do during treatment. Like, how long does it usually take women to see results?
So it depends on what the person's coming in with. If this person's coming in with, let's say you only leak when you sneeze or cough, which is a lot of us. One of the best things you can do for that is, okay, you're about to cough. You can feel that sneeze. You're like, oh my gosh, it's coming and I'm going to pee. That is when I want you to do a hard pelvic floor contraction. I want you to squeeze as hard as you can. And by doing that, you're reminding that part of the body how to fully close to keep urine inside of your body so you don't pee. So for women with that, if you practice that over the next week or two, I guarantee you're going to have less concerns when it comes to like sneezing and leaking. If you're dealing with incontinence because it's a muscle issue weakness, that's going to respond in about 2 to 3 months, because just like any muscle in the body, it takes about 8 to 12 weeks for muscles to physiologically get stronger. So you're looking at a couple months usually. And then if you're dealing with pain with intimacy, that can take a bit longer because that's just a lot more complicated.
Interesting. I'm able to jump on a trampoline now. And I have to say, it is because of all of the Pilates and the ab work that I do each day. So I can definitely attest that strengthening the abs and doing everything, it actually works. And no Kegels needed whatsoever. You mentioned before that we're not doing a Kegel the right way. Can you lead us through how we should do a Kegel?
Yes. So get into a comfy spot. Do not do this in the car. Do not do this while you're driving with your kids screaming at you in the background. So lie down in bed, get comfy, put your knees up. So your feet on the bed, knees up in the air. And then you want to think about just the pelvic floor. So not your butt. We like to clench our butt when we're trying to do a Kegel because we think we need to have this like maximum, like we just did the bench press, like crazy kind of like muscle contraction.
Because that is so me. I don't know how to separate. It's just all in one.
Yes.
You're working on the yacht. You're working on the yacht. Yeah.
Yes. And like, we go back and forth. We're like, should we even do Kegels? Because no muscle in the body really works in isolation. But we want to make sure that muscle can actually do its job. And then we build it in with all its friends. So lie down, get comfortable, and I want you to think of mostly the vaginal canal because that's where babies come out of. They're not coming out of the back of the pelvic floor. That's where the poop is coming out. So focus on the front and really just think. You can do 2 ways that people just absolutely love when I tell them. Number 1, think that there's a blueberry at their vaginal opening. You are picking up that blueberry. You are lifting it towards your belly button.
Oh,
Number 2,
this one. Ping pong balls, Joanne. I'm taking a ping pong ball.
There you go.
Oh my gosh.
The other way that works I mean, it might ruin this for some people, but the way that really, really works is imagine you've got a straw inside of the vaginal canal and you are sucking up the thickest milkshake you can possibly think of. You're welcome.
I'm sorry, I'm such a child. I am such a child. Okay.
But we all know what that feels like, right? So we know what, if we put a straw inside of our mouth, we know that we have to make that suction 360 degrees. And then we got to lift it up inside our mouth to get it down our throat where it's all yummy and delicious. So think of this. Same thing when you're doing a Kegel. Think of that milkshake. And then moms come in and they're like, you ruined chocolate milkshakes. And I'm like, I know, I'm sorry. But
oh my gosh,
it works really well. So we're just thinking
that I'm going to make Brie laugh. I'm just going to be sitting in a quiet space sometime and I'll be picking the blueberry. And
but it works.
Then I'll be like enjoying my milkshake.
There you go.
That's how we work.
You're welcome. I can't wait to hear comments later like, oh, the milkshake worked, but now I can't drink milkshakes. And I'm like, well,
okay,
good thing there's other good things.
So I'm curious, how do people find a pelvic floor physical therapist in their area? Like,
yes,
if you don't live in a huge metropolitan area, how would you find one?
Yep. So if you go on Herman and Wallace, and if you go onto their website, they have a provider list that is very good. It's pretty comprehensive for the rest of the country. There is also another website put out by Sarah Duvall, who's another physical therapist. She has a very large pregnancy and postpartum exercise certification, and her website also has a provider list. So it'll tell you in your city who to work with. And then I also do virtual programs. It's a wellness program for anybody in the country. So for clients that live in rural areas that can't have access, or for really busy women that can't get into a clinic, there are virtual options out there that work honestly just as well. I've seen really positive results for my in-person clients and also my virtual clients.
I love
That's
that.
cool.
Because you might not feel comfortable going somewhere. I like the idea of the virtual option.
Or you might not have time. I mean, moms are juggling just a couple things or 1,000 things, like every single moment of time, it feels like. So for moms like that, you can still get help. You do not have to go to a clinic and have somebody physically touch you. There's so much that we can do on a virtual basis and get you a program and get you forgetting about any of these concerns.
So if you have incontinence right now, is it actually possible to totally relieve that issue and be off poise pads forever?
Absolutely. Even
Really?
I've been working with I have a handful of 70 to 75-year-olds right now. And they came in and they were like, there's no way I can stop this. There's no way. I've had these problems for 40 years. Does it take longer in my 70-year-olds? Yep. But those women are now hiking and playing pickleball without leaking.
I have her new tagline, Joanne. It's the poise-free promise.
The
Get
poise-free
it?
promise.
Get it?
For
All right, it wasn't that good.
I love to hear that because I think so many women out there get into these issues and they think, okay, well, this is just aging and this is what I have to deal with.
Yeah, it's known as like a thing that just happens. It's that running joke that, okay, you're just going to pee your pants for the rest of your life because that's what happens.
And it does, these are muscles, like to kind of like circle back around. They're just muscles, and muscles in any part of our body are going to get a little bit weaker when we're not as active. They're going to get weaker as we age if we don't do strength training. That's why all of us are supposed to strength train our whole bodies 2 to 3 times a week, because we naturally lose muscle mass as we age, especially women. We start losing our muscle mass in our 30s and we lose 5% approximately per decade. So everybody on this podcast could probably benefit from a little bit more strength training the entire body, including the pelvic floor.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to train for the life you want so that, you keep going and you don't get like in bed and can't do anything. I say that a lot because a lot of people don't like exercise, and you realize as you get older, when your body starts like tightening up on you because of the lack of exercise, you're not able to have fun in the activities you used to. And so you have to really train for that life you want. And that's how you look at exercise versus just the weight loss aspect that so many of us women have fed over the years.
Exactly.
So tell us something that you're excited about, Megan, that's coming up in your life.
I mean, honestly, I'm so excited how the pelvic floor world has changed in the past 5 years. when I go and teach classes, women know about the pelvic floor now. They know that they can fix it. And honestly, I think our 30, 40, 50-year-old moms, we are going to change the direction of women's health. And that is going to be so empowering for even our own moms on the other end of the spectrum, but it's going to be so important for our daughters and our daughters' friends, and just knowing that this is not embarrassing. This is not a shameful condition.
Right?
This is just a muscle. And to be part of that and to be able to, especially with like being able to reach women that can't access this across the country, I never thought that that was going to be my passion. And it's just, I feel honored to be a part of it. I really do, because moms have it hard enough. So if we can find ways to make ourselves healthy and give ourselves that support inside our own bodies, then we can do everything else that we have to and want to do.
I love that.
Absolutely. Could not agree more. Megan, it was so amazing having you here and giving us all the instruction. And we're going to be picking blueberries and drinking milkshakes for the first
You're welcome.
We are.
Go get yourself that milkshake.
Go get that milkshake. Thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
So, Brie, you made a reference about ping pong ball during this episode. And here's the ping pong ball that you're referencing.
Oh my God. We're going to have to make a video about this one for sure.
We'll have to make that.
Do you want to tell them the story of where it came from and all that, Jess?
It was when we went on our Italy cruise, on the cruise ship. The musical that we saw was Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. And there is a very well-known scene where one of the characters pops ping pong balls out her hoo-ha.
And I had never, by the way, guys, I had heard of Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, but I had never seen it. And I knew very limited information about it. Somehow the ping pong ball scene was never information I knew about it. So when I saw that on stage, I think they had to pick up my jaw off the floor. I was like, holy crap.
She obviously does her Kegels correctly,
Yeah.
like in the movie. But anyways, I kept the ping pong ball because they throw them out in the audience,
Yes,
of course.
yes.
And it's not like a lewd scene or whatever. They do
it was hilarious. It was hilarious because
It was a
you saw
hilarious
it as what it was. So
And it became our joke the entire cruise, where we all had ping pong balls and we would lift up our legs and like throw them at each other. Just 'cause we're
I wonder
toddlers.
where mine went. I do have mine somewhere. Mine's actually slightly dented. Whole nother story.
Throwing that ping pong ball too hard, too much strength there.
Oh my God. Okay, so I gotta say that was one of the most fun, enjoyable, and educational podcast interviews we have had. I love anything where we can just be very honest about how life is going and stuff like. I still want to go with. We have a poise-free promise.
I want to try some exercises because this is a confidence thing for me. Like I have to travel with poise pads every single place I go because it's out of control, and it has been ever since I've been pregnant. So I love that she talked about, you didn't have to do a vaginal delivery to have these issues because I had 2 C-sections. Yeah.
Because you and I both had C-sections. So I get your self-confidence thing. Tell me if this is what goes through your head. Everybody said, oh, you had a C-section, then so lucky for you, you're not going to have all these problems. And so when they start, you're like, oh crap, what did I do wrong? Not knowing that this could happen. And I have to admit, I was floored that I didn't even think about the fact that guys had pelvic floors.
About that because of something that happened in my family, and that family member was going to go to a pelvic floor therapist to like help, and it was male. So I knew that guys actually got this as well.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting, right?
Yeah, and it was funny too. She talked about when you cough or sneeze, like how you need to like tighten up. I'm like, girl, I twist my legs into the tightest pretzel possible. There is not a loose muscle down there when I have to sneeze.
But
that's all I gotta say.
Blueberry.
Well, no, I hadn't picked the blueberry when it happens. Like I'm just trying to not pee my pants. That's all I'm trying to do.
I mean, that's how it is. That's how it
Yes,
is.
it is. That is how it is.
Well, we hope that you enjoyed this episode as much as we did. Please,
Yes.
please, please, if we could ask you to share this with a friend or to leave us a review, it really helps us get the word out about the No Guilt Mom podcast and shows the podcast to more people. So anything you could do to help us out, we are so, so appreciative. And just know that each time we see a review come in, it is something we share throughout our entire team. It goes up on the Slack channel. We celebrate. We have like a boost of energy. So
it's the best.
It's the best. So until next time, remember, the best mom's a happy mom. Care of you. We'll talk to you later.
Thanks for stopping by.
Hello, you sentient ball of stardust. My name is Casey Davis. I'm a therapist and I'm an author of the book, How to Keep House While Drowning, where I talk about ways to make it a little bit easier to take care of yourself when you're overwhelmed, stressed, have mental health issues, physical health issues, or maybe you're just in a hard season of life. Maybe you're looking for a place that you can come and listen to some practical advice. This is a podcast for all of the self-help rejects. We're going to talk about skills for survival and self-kindness. And I'm going to leave the pop psychology at the door. I promise not to tell you to meditate or to journal. We're just going to give you some really insightful conversations with hopefully some practical advice. So I don't believe you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. I don't want you to just try harder, and I don't believe that laziness exists. So join me over on Struggle Care, where we can find compassionate solutions that help us function a little bit better.